So we are joined right now by Carson Bristol from Lithia and Green Cars. You are working on sustainability on a level that's, most people are like, okay, what are dealers doing? How is it we're working on sustainability in a way that is kind of on a larger scale? People think of dealerships sometimes and dealer groups as like, well, do they have an impact and footprint? But Lithia and Green Cars, you guys have a huge footprint for how far your reach can go, and sustainability is something you've been focused on. So what are you guys doing there?
That's right, Matt. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, you know, on all sides of sustainability, not only do we have to look at sort of the impact that our downstream products are having and trying to, you know, push more sustainable vehicles. At the same time, we operate a large footprint of stores around the country, and it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of resources, and everything we can do to you know, mitigate that impact is going to be important. So our approach is always very, you know, operational focused, trying to find wins within energy efficiency that can, you know, not only improve our dealers' bottom line, but also help the planet and also create a better customer experience. You know, we have stores that come in all different shapes and sizes, but you know, all of them are resource intensive. All of them are having to light their parking lots at night. And you know, if you're not using LED lighting, for example, not only are you providing lighting that's not as efficient, but it's a darker lot. It's not selling cars as well, and you're spending a lot more energy on the backside to do it. So we assess all kinds of solutions. There's no one size fits all for our stores, whether that's LED lighting, whether that's making sure we have the most efficient HVAC systems and heating and cooling the building as efficiently as possible, all the way up to sometimes there's fits for on-site solar. You know, car dealerships are actually a pretty natural fit for solar.
Massive rooftops. I mean, it's just like, okay, let's just spread solar panels across those, right?
Exactly. They're big, flat, white roofs, and oftentimes it's a great business investment, sustainability aside, to go with solar and to, you know, produce your own energy on site.
Well, the conversation of, again, sustainability, sometimes it's not terribly sexy, right? It's almost like, okay, what are we talking about? But really, as you described very well, it's really about energy efficiency and managing energy in a way that you're being more proactive in how you're thinking about it. We talked a lot this weekend about how people that have just been driving cars forever, they don't necessarily think about how they have been using energy in the past, whether that's, you know, driving a gas car, getting gas, or how they use energy at home. And it translates all the way up the food chain into business. And again, to your point, the scale at which you guys can have an impact as it relates to emissions and cleaner energy and things of that nature is huge. And it's not just from the business perspective, it's also in all the communities where your dealerships are located.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I always say that, you know, my colleagues that work at Green Cars and, you know, get to sell the EVs, that is the sexy part. I'm kind of more on the ground level there, trying to help our stores be more efficient. And you're right, it is definitely, you know, your local car dealer is often pretty ingrained in the community. And so just finding these opportunities where everyone wins, right? Where it's good for our planet, it's good for the community that we do business in, and it's good for the company at the end of the day at the same time.
Yeah, and absolutely. You guys have been to the forefront of deploying EV charging also at the dealership level. How has that impacted the energy footprint of your dealers?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, and I think it's something that's ever evolving. You know, as manufacturers, you know, they incentivize us to put in charging wherever we can. Sometimes that's just to service the EVs that are coming into our stores and our shops, and sometimes it's also you know, providing charging for the public. And, you know, a company that, or sorry, rather a dealership that has charging, now that becomes a community center where people in the area can come and plug in their cars and maybe walk around and shop for a new EV while they're at it. But yeah, just, you know, increasing those touch points. There's also all kinds of sort of, you know, things around charging and looking at how we're sourcing our energy for that charging, right? So, you know, when you're plugging in your car, it's only as green as the grid you're using your energy from. And so if we can have a store that's extra sustainable, that has solar panels, and they're feeding that charger with renewable energy, you know, that's really a best case scenario for us.
Getting buy-in sometimes on a level, again, you guys are a dealer group, but you actually have to sell the dealers on the fact that this is important, that they need to be thinking about oftentimes, right? They're bean counters at the end of the day in many ways, but this is something that isn't on the forefront of their mind. So what's the process by which you go and engage on the rooftop level and say, hey, this is what we're doing programmatically, this is what we're doing as again, Lithia as an entity. How do you get the dealer, you know, the GMs and the owners to say, okay, picking up on it, so this is what we can do. Is there a struggle there sometimes? I mean, because again, we're educating here to the public, even with Expo, but on industry level, you got to educate internally too.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and I think a lot of it is educational, right? It's just not something that folks are thinking about all the time. You know, and why should they, right? Their job is to sell cars. Their job is not to reduce their carbon emissions. And so I think the approach is really the same as it is with anyone in sustainability. And with EVs as well. You lead with the solution and the product first, and this is why this is good for your bottom line. This is why this is going to better your life, make your job easier. And on the backside, yes, it's more sustainable. And, you know, just being able to kind of understand and speak everyone's different language and prove sort of why this technology, why this solution is going to make your customers happier. It's going to make you happier at the end of the day because your operational expenses are lower. And it's going to make us at the corporate level happy because we're making that incremental progress towards decarbonization and towards being a better business.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, downstream, you're talking about dealers becoming a little bit of a center, right? People can't actually, you know, come there, go there, you know, buy cars. Maybe their kids will buy cars from the same dealer, right? That's the ultimate story, like dealerships selling cars to the same family for many, many generations. So talk a little bit about the downstream effects on how, like, you know, that entity in the community being more sustainable, being a little more open about, you know, promoting sustainability. How is that downstream effect into the community, into people's homes?
Yeah, and I think that's something that my GMs sometimes come to me and they say, hey, you know, I want to look into solar because it attracts more customers. You know, sometimes you know, sustainability does sell in cases, and you know, if you have a customer who comes in and they want to buy an EV, generally they're a more sustainably minded customer. And if there's, you know, 4 different dealerships to choose between to purchase that vehicle, maybe they'll go to the one with the solar panels on the roof. You know, and so those are other ways. You know, we work on certifying our dealerships through Energy Star. You know, at our last count, I think we had 6 of the, I think it was 13 Energy Star certified dealers in the country were Lithia dealerships. And, you know, those are things that our GMs have noticed, you know, make a difference in terms of both, you know, getting new customers and then retaining those customers as well, because it's a holistic approach, right?
Well, again, you're talking about setting the example, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. Dealers, again, a lot of people from the community know who they are. They work within the community. This is the kind of thing where a lot of the dealers will say, like, look, we sponsored the softball team. Like, you guys know who we are, right? But that leadership component is important, and setting the example for the community is important. And that's true, as you describe that too. It's like at the end of the day, if it saves them money, if it's going to be the investment saves them money over time, and at the end of the day, then turns into a sample of, hey, this is what we do as a business. But to your point, it translates to customers. Either they are sustainable minded, and that's why they might shop with them. But it also could then be the planting of the seed of saying, like, wait, my dealership has solar? Like, we can do that here? Like, I didn't even, that to me is something where as an entity, again, as a dealer group, if you're helping plant those seeds in local communities, it does translate all the way down into the car buying experience. But then as you describe, it's like those car buyers, either A, they were sustainable up front, or this could be the thing that gets them into that sustainable lifestyle. So I guess overall, I mean, how long is this sustainable practice, and again, the role that you have, how long has this been a mission of the Lithia Group?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, it's something that Lithia's always cared about at some level in terms of, you know, how can we do right by our customers? How can we do right by the planet? And, you know, measure and keep track of the impact in the communities that we're doing business in. You know, I think sustainability over the last 4 or 5 years has become just a more natural fit for a lot of companies. You know, right now, solar energy is the cheapest new energy to produce. Whether you're a utility or, you know, anything else, it's the cheapest new energy to get on the grid. The way that the incentive market has been, and obviously that's changing along with EVs and everything, you know, it just makes good financial sense. And so I think at a certain point it became, hey, you know, why are we not taking advantage of these business opportunities as much as it was, you know, let's do what we can to decarbonize. Let's do what we can to, you know, make an impact on our communities and on the greater, you know, sustainability movement.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, you know, there is putting infrastructure in the ground and obviously like teaching people how to use it. So like, you know, I know that a lot of effort goes into educating, you know, personality or dealerships on how to talk about EVs to customers, how to, you know, tell them that, you know, reassure them about the fact that they are going to be able to charge these vehicles, whether at home or out in public. So, you know, maybe one thing that I would like to learn about is, how much synergy is there between you guys and the OEMs when it comes to, passing that knowledge from the technical teams at the automakers all the way down to the customer?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's one that is central to kind of how dealer groups like ourselves make decisions, right? And so, everything we do needs to be in alignment with the strategy that our OEMs are giving us. And with respect to sustainability, you see it different ways. There's times where it's just a gentle sort of nudge of, hey, you should be doing these things in order to operate a better dealership. And other times it's more of the carrot than the stick, and they're incentivizing our dealers to invest in their facilities and be more sustainable, and in exchange they get more cars to sell, for example, or things like that. And then in other cases it's a really collaborative approach where we work specifically with that OEM's Green Dealer program, where they offer recommendations and they offer support in pursuing holistic solutions that are going to benefit not only our dealers but also the customer as well.
It's a lot to unpack.
I mean, yeah, it's a great point. I mean, right now you have the Triple Crown dealerships that they have, like, for service, for sales, right, for financing and what things of that nature. I would love to see one of those crowns being allocated for sustainability.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's a great example. Yeah. I guess over time, I mean, again, at the end of the day, you've got, I think it's like 300 showrooms total here in the United States, around that number, and you're one of the biggest auto groups in the nation. The end game is you want all of them applying this practice, right? So what's the I guess the penetration rate you have on all dealers? Do you have a grading system you have for them aligning with these sustainable practices? You mentioned the OEM piece, where some OEMs are going to be having their own initiatives they have on their own, and you're aligning those visions with your own. But yeah, I mean, how's that? What's the progress like? What's the success rate look like?
Yeah, and I think that's something that's, it's all very site specific, right? So, a dealership in Alaska is going to operate super differently than the one that we have in Florida. And
right.
So to judge them all on one standard is, it doesn't make any sense. They come in all shapes and sizes, and at the end of the day, what we're focused on is what's the right fit for this store specifically. And so that's a very personal approach that we take. We work with them, we understand what their pain points, what works well here, what doesn't, and what set of solutions can we prescribe to them that's going to not only make them more sustainable, but also help their bottom line.
Well, you're doing more homework for them in advance, because they're not researching this on their own oftentimes, right? You have to come to them with a playbook, as you said, like, hey, if you're in Alaska, this works for you, whereas you go to someone in Phoenix, totally different conversation.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think at the end of the day, what we really look for is just that engagement piece. We want our stores to get excited about pursuing things like this, and we want our stores to make an effort and understand, a little bit more, one step further, why they should be interested in, being more energy efficient. And sometimes that's just a bottom line thing. Sometimes they just want to save money.
I was about to say, the money thing is the kicker.
And frankly, that's fine with me. If that's what gets them to do it, that's fine with me, right? It's just about finding those wins, regardless of the motivation, and assessing those different stakeholders and understanding where their priorities are.
Well, again, I think as a group, I mean, Lithia as a company, and Green Cars being a part of Lithia, I mean, you're putting your money where your mouth is by being a part of the Expo. Again, the work that you're doing for sustainability focus with those rooftops is another big part of saying, look, this is authentic. We give a damn about this, and we're showing it. So I guess for those who have interest around knowing, okay, if I'm going to buy from a dealership that cares about this, is there information about the sustainability practices for Lithia that people can find online, for example?
Yeah, so we produce a corporate sustainability report every year. It's available on our investor relations website. It really showcases, not just from a quantitative perspective, the impact that we're having as a whole, but it also highlights some specific stories and some instances where our stores have really gone above and beyond and invested in their facilities, invested in their communities. It's a really great way to kind of showcase the work that's being done all over the country.
Dario, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, my old company used to say driving a better way, so, this aligns quite up.
That's exactly it. Well, Carson, thank you so much for coming by and talking to us. I think the work that you guys are doing, it really showcases, again, at the end of the day, there's a lot that we have to do as a collective, as an industry, and all the stakeholders aligning. And oftentimes, I mean, big stakeholders we're talking about, really, it's the automakers, they're represented here. We have the charging networks, they're represented here in many ways. The utilities, they've come by, we've talked to them. There's the policymakers, we've talked to them. But the dealers are basically that fifth pillar, because at the end of the day, when you're buying, and you can test drive everything here at Expo, they have to go to a showroom, and that showroom has to also then, in turn, sometimes make sure it shows, okay, we align with these values you have, or it might be telling the story of, these are values you may not have thought about, but we care about them here. So keep up the great work. Awesome that you're doing it. Thank you again for everything you're doing. Anything else we should know before we go?
No, I don't think so. This has been a really cool experience. My first Expo personally.
Cool.
And just seeing, all the different players come together that's what's needed here, right? We all need to work together and understand that this is something that needs to get addressed at all different stages, whether that's the manufacturer, the dealer, the consumer themselves. And so it's been really kind of a cool experience to see the collaboration. And it's the kind of energy I get excited about. Thank you guys for having me.